Hi SD. I thought, like I say, I'd just do a video of how I'd sort of tackle that image mapping. Most of it's the same. Hold on, let me turn the shortcut keys on. Pull it. Yeah, so we can see what we're doing. So I'll do Shift A. Add a reference image and go to the photo that he's used, and reference image will always come in based on how you're looking at it, so I'll just do Alt-R and that will reset the rotation, then just RX90 and hit return, and that just puts it there. Then numpad 1, then 5 to switch to orthographic. Then I'll do Shift A, add mesh plane, again RX90, return, go into edit mode. Now this is where I start to do things differently. I have my snapping set to vertex. I'll choose edge mode, select the bottom edge, just GZ, and just move it down. It won't actually snap to an of course it's an empty, it can't snap to it. Yeah, normally if I just add something else, say, and I just move that over here, I take that edge and I can snap to the various vertexes, but this doesn't actually have any vertices. It's actually an empty, which is like Wave's null object, but it can hold a reference image to allow you to build up various things for modeling. So there is no actual geometry as such to that. If I come out and select that, you can see it just says empty. There's no actual geometry for it. So that's just something to be aware of. Right, okay, let's get rid of that cube. Okay, back to where we were. So select the edge, GZ. That means I can just move anywhere and not worry about it. Select that in GX. Do the same thing. GX. And then he says go into X-ray mode, but you can also hold down Shift and press Z, and that puts you in wireframe mode. Shift Z toggles back, Alt Z puts it into actual solid X-ray mode and toggles back out. So both two useful things. So add a loop cut there with Control R, and like that. I'm going to do it slightly different to him because I want to outline the windowsill as well. What I'm doing, Control R, depending on which edge you go to, depends on its organisation. Something I use a lot. So Control R again, put that up there, Control R again, put that up there. And that's pretty much what we need. Just select that and just drag it in a bit. I'm actually going to mark a seam there, so I'll just do Control E, and I'm just going to mark seam, and that'll put a seam around that end face which separates it. And then I'm going to select that, and that. I'm going to eat that out a bit. Control plus to expand the option. Select loop, boundary loop, and mark that as a seam. Control E, mark seam. That's just for sort of UV unwrapping. It's just something I do automatically. Right, but then really I can just go face mode. Select everything, U, and project from view bounds. Right, now I can go over to UV editing. I can pull up my image here so I can see what I'm working with. Now scale X in the UV mode, and then scale Y like that. Oh, hang on, oh, got that wrong. I need to be in face mode. Hide everything else. Scale X, scale Y. Move it down a bit as well. There we go, that's better. I'm not bothered about the stretching on that because it really won't make too much of a difference. And then what I can do, I'll just stop myself from being able to pick that plane. His thing only showed these two items. I go up to the filter here and I always enable them, because it enables me to then choose whether you can select it or not, whether it's visible or not, whether it's completely disabled, both render and visible, or whether you can see it in render. So you can have it visible but not render, or not visible and render. Very handy. So anyway, back into this, let's call that window F2 window. Tab into edit mode. Let's hide that empty because it's confusing matters. Now we can put it back on. Right, hide everything else. I'll tell you what I'll actually do. Something that you can do with these things. Turn on the opacity, pull it down. Like that. There we go. Now I'll go into edit mode. That's better. So now I can Control R here. Well, Control X to delete that. Control X didn't want to do that. Control R. Control R. Right, Control R, Control B to bevel the edge, like that. Control R, Control R. I'm just adding a bit more detail basically. Then I'm going to select these. And I'm going to go, you can either extrude like that, or you can select one and you can use I for inset but hold the control key to push it in and out instead, like that. We take the empty off. So that's basically giving you the windows a bit more detail. Then I'm just going to go into shading, new, for a new material, window texture. I have Node Wrangler enabled, so go to File, Edit Preferences, Add-ons, and look for Node. Always enable that, it's a godsend. Now I can select that, press Ctrl T, and that sets up the UVs, and then I can just select my texture. And there we have it, like that. And as you said, for the bump, similar thing. I just add a bump. Plug that in. You want to watch bumps, they go nut bomb, as you can see. So what I tend to do is take the strength down to 0.1 and the distance down to about 0.05. Otherwise it just looks too false. Right. And the other thing I do with bumps, I take a converter colour ramp in, and then to see how it looks I can select that, hold Control Shift and click on it, and I'm now viewing the output of that node. So I could play with the colour of it in terms of the contrasting, how much bump we're getting. I might decide to even out the bump a bit and just make it a little less. Pull it in like that, and that would be the bump. Then just Control Shift click on that, puts it back. Alright, all I do now is actually these bits. So again, go into UV editing, and I will select these faces. And to select them, I'll hold down Alt and press there. Like that. Unwrap, and I'll just use Smart UV Project because I'm only interested in what's going on. Just different ways of doing it. Oh, I've chosen the wrong one. Don't. Oh, of course I have. I need to expand them. Silly me. There we go. These are the ones I want. I'm an idiot. So I'll just unwrap them, Smart UV Project. And then select the face, 3 for faces, R90. Just drag them over. Just puts on these. Come here. I'm not too bothered about them, you don't see them. And again, Smart UV Project. And I'll scale them down. R90. Just move them. Scale them down a bit more. Like that. A bit more. Select one, press L, G to move, G to move, G to move. Come out of edit mode. That just looks a bit better. But you've got a bit more detail and then a bit more bump going on. Like that. The stretching on the paint isn't too bad. But again, we can fix that. We can just select these. Smart UV Project. Scale them right down. G. I'm holding Shift and using my middle mouse button to pan. R90. Scale. G. G. Move that one to there. G. Move that one to there. That looks a bit better. Right. So that's another way of doing it. There's probably about another 5 or 6 different ways of doing it as well. And it's the same with this. If you wanted to extend those bits out, you can just line them up, select them, click in, then Control click in, Shift click, Control click. It out a bit, and there we go. And if we put that in, let's hide the empty completely, go into that mode, and there we are. Put that on, go into cycles, texture. Open HDR. Want a courtyard will do. Vector mapping, vector generated. And that then allows me to just rotate the HDR to see what I'm getting. Go into perspective and I can actually see the HDR, so I can see what I'm playing with, look for. So right, I'd really want to pull this all the way around here, get the sun, get the main light about there. There we go. So 9. Oh, minus 50. Yeah, minus 50 will do. There we go. Let that sort itself out in a minute. Here we are. Turn off the overlays. And you've got a reasonable thing there, and I can always select that. Even though you can't see it selected because the overlays are off, it does pull this up. So I can go to my bump and I can say make that 0.1. I mean, you'll see what happens if I make that 1. It gets a bit intense. And that makes 1. And you can see how intense that bump is now. It's always way too much, so I do tend to drop it to 0.1 and 0.1, which gives it a much more subtle approach. It's still there, but it's much more subtle. So anyway, that's one way I'd tackle it. There's like multiple ways of going about it, but just thought it'd be handy for you to see how you can do something more than one way.